Hi everyone, it's Gemma. Welcome back to Pampered Wolf. This video is going to be about all things bronzers. So we're going to create two very different looks in this video. One more chiseled and carved out. The other one really summery, really natural, youthful, bronzy glow look. So we're going to be talking about different application methods, placement, blending, all to achieve those two very different looks using exactly the same product. So if you are new here, hi, my name's Gemma. I upload 2 to 3 videos here on YouTube every single week. I'm also on Instagram at @pamperedwolf if you fancy popping across and following me over there as well. I would really appreciate it if after this video you found this video helpful in any way, you've enjoyed watching it, you found it entertaining. Come and join the Pampered Wolf Pack by clicking on that subscribe button and hit that notification bell and also the like button. It seriously does help me out, so thank you very much. So let's just talk about bronzer for a second and why I think it's super important. Now, even if I feel like it's super important, doesn't mean you need it in your makeup routine. It's not a necessity. But if you use a medium to a full coverage foundation on a daily basis, the one that I have on today is quite a high medium coverage foundation, you'll see that all of my skin is one color. It's pretty one-dimensional, it's quite flat. And by introducing a bronzer into the mix, we introduce those different levels of shades back into the skin, which make it look a lot more natural. If you look at my chest, for instance, you will see all the different tones on my skin. Now, I have no foundation down here whatsoever, and there's lots of pinks poking through, there's some pigmentation there, and it looks super natural. And the whole point of putting bronzer in your routine is to make your skin look a little bit more natural and also to add definition in certain areas as well. On the subject of definition, a lot of makeup artists would say that categorically using a bronzer as a contour shade is a big no-no. I slightly disagree with that blanket statement. If you really love a bronzer that is very warm toned, very bronzy, very glowy, if you were to use that as a contour shade, it wouldn't look natural. It would do the job to some extent, but it wouldn't do it in a very natural way because contour is there to create shadows, to make things look deeper and more chiseled and more defined. And shadows aren't warm toned. So if you are going to use a bronzer as a contour shade and you want it to look super natural, you need to pick a bronzer that's more cool toned. Anyone who has been a regular to my channel for quite some time will know that I really don't like a warm-toned bronzer on my skin personally. I think it looks so beautiful on other people and I'm really super jealous. I want to be able to wear those shades as well, but I know what suits my skin, and cool tone bronzers or neutral tone bronzers tend to be better for me. So that's what I'm going to use today, which is why I think this bronzer is suitable for both contouring and also that beautiful bronzy glow look as well. So let's start on the chiseled side. We are going to use my bronzer as contour today. We're going to carve out that cheekbone. We're going to make the forehead look a little shorter because, you know, my forehead is huge. I know this. I don't mind. And then we're going to just define the jawline a little bit as well. So the bronzer I'm going to be using today is one of my faves. And if you were wondering about my favorite bronzers of all time, there is a video coming up. So if you have a fair skin tone like me and you always struggle to find a fair, cooler toned or neutral toned bronzer, you want to stick around for that video. It is coming very soon. So this one is by NARS and it is in the shade Vallarta. It's just fantastic. The brush I'm going to use is the 05 from Refa. It's a really lovely brush. It has quite a defined end, so you can be really accurate with this and get it where you want it, and yet because it's quite chunky on the back, you can also get a really good blend with this as well. So firstly, I'm just going to put a tiny bit on the end and suck my cheek in a little bit to find out where my cheekbone sits. I'm not going to go too far down. I'm going to actually go quite high up and just whittle that in place. Whittle, technical term. Whittling. So just place that where I want it. And once that's really where I want it, I'm just gonna brush it from side to side, little windscreen wiper motions, and just blend that a little bit further into the center of my face. So with contour, I always place the product where I want it and then I blend up. So I will brush off any excess product from my brush and then start blending this in an upward motion. Now I have left a 3-finger gap from the side of my nose. I don't want to go any further towards the center of my face than that. So once I've got the desired effect, I'm going to take a little bit more and I'm just going to add that to the perimeter of my forehead. This will just shorten everything off and make my forehead seem less vast, like the side of a ship. And I'm going to go all the way down past the temples, and I'm just padding this in place. I'm literally just patting. Making sure that I stay close to that hairline, but especially if you have blonde hair, don't go too close to the hairline. You want to make sure it's a nice blend, but you don't want to get any on your hair because I mean, there's nothing worse than getting bronzer all over your blonde hair. So just being really careful, making sure that I get close enough. And then I'm just going to blend that upwards. Then I'm going to define the jawline and just snatch that in a little bit. Make it look much more defined and chiseled. Just running that just underneath the jawline. And then blending that up all the way to the bronzer that we placed just underneath that cheekbone. Now, if you want to do an eye lift, you can also do this with bronzer. So I'm going to take a slightly smaller brush. This is my Refa 18 brush. I'm just going to put a little bit on the end, knock off the excess, and then go right from the corner of the eye, and I'm going all the way up to the temples. I'm going to do that a couple of times just to add a little bit of a lift to the corner of the eye, and it's really effective. So just to recap what we did on the defined side of my face, I used the 3-finger technique to make sure that the contour underneath my cheekbone didn't get too close to the center of my face. I just feel like that's a little bit too much for me. If you're not sure what I mean about the 2-finger or the 3-finger technique, I talked about that technique in my blush video, how to knock years off you with blush application. I will link that up here for you and also in the description box if you haven't seen that, so you can watch it a little bit later on. You may find that video really helpful. So I used the 3-finger technique to make sure that my contour wasn't too close to the center of my face. I dusted bronzer around the perimeter of my forehead. I carried that on all the way around the perimeter of my face and defined underneath the jawline. After each application, really important, I blended the bronzer upwards. So when I'm defining the face, when I'm trying to define the features on the face or give more of a chiseled look, I'm always blending upwards. Let's move on to the bronzy, summery, glowy side. I'm going to use exactly the same bronzer, the one from NARS in the shade Vallarta, and I'm going to use more of a fluffy brush just so it doesn't look overly precise. It's very well blended. So this brush is from Real Techniques and it's the Real Techniques 400 brush. So first of all, I'm going to start applying on the perimeter of my face. So I'm going to go on the forehead. I'm going to start dabbing to begin with. And once I've dabbed that product in place, I'm going to blend downwards, because when you're out in the sun to get a tan, the sun shines downwards, so you tend to get more of a pigmentation here, and then it slowly gets less as you get down the forehead. So always blending downwards. I'm going to use the same brush. I'm going to dust that onto the high points of my cheeks. Once again, using the 3-finger technique to make sure that I don't get too close to the center of my face. So just to repeat myself, I have applied the bronzer really right on the tops of my cheekbones where the sun would hit, and then I'm blending in a downward motion. I keep looking at myself in the mirror and thinking that looks really strange where I've stopped halfway across my forehead. Anyway, you can also use bronzer in that eye socket because the sun gets everywhere. Blend it outwards. Again, really pretty. Then I'm going to apply a little bit down the center of my nose and also on the tip of my nose. If I'm ever out in the sun for a prolonged period of time, it's usually my nose and my ears that I feel it first. So it's definitely going to catch the sun. Then I'm just going to complete the look using a little bit of blush just to bring everything together. I'm using one of the Divine blushes from Pat McGrath. So this one is in Nude Venus. Absolutely stunning. Really, really beautiful blush. So that's it, 2 very different looks, 1 product. Yes, I probably wouldn't have used a bronzer to sculpt and carve out my cheekbones and define my face if my bronzer was a really warm tone bronzer, because that just wouldn't look very natural. But if you do have a cool toned bronzer that you love to use on a daily basis, there's no harm on it. There's just no harm in it as far as I'm concerned. Let me show you these individually because it's a little off-putting having both of these side by side. So first of all, this is the more chiseled look. My cheekbone is more defined, my jawline is tighter and more snatched, and my forehead looks a little smaller. Let's now have a look at the side that is much more summery and glowy. The bronzer has been used in a completely different way. The blending was completely different. And this is just supposed to give you that summery, glowy, natural, I've been out in the sun look. It's really, really pretty. Now you can add bronzer down your neck, you can add bronzer underneath your jawline if you want to with this look as well, but I wanted them to be as different as possible so you could definitely see the difference. But I think it's quite dramatic and you can build this up as you want to. Let me know your thoughts. Hope you've liked this video. I hope you found it helpful in some way. I was really, really worried that my bronzer was going to stick and look a little patchy in this video because it is so hot in here. It is so super hot in here, but I think it looks okay. Anyway, hope to see you all in the next video. Bye everyone.